Oh, West Palm Beach. Oh, sorry.
Good afternoon. We are at the Veterans Administration.
We are at the Veterans Affairs Medical Center in West Palm Beach, Florida.
And my name is Letitia Ruffin Cartwright, and I have assisting me Tony Price, and we are interviewing today Mr.
Harold Lake.
Harold Lake. Great, sir. And we're glad to be here. We're glad to be here to get a little bit of knowledge of Mr. Lake's experience. So, Mr. Lake, let's start our interview, sir. Today is October 9th, 2012. Let's start our interview. First of all, what wars did you serve in the military?
Vietnam.
Vietnam. And what was your branch of service was?
The U.S. Air Force.
U.S. Air Force. Thank you, sir. And sir?
What was your rank?
Staff Sergeant, E5.
Where did you serve?
I served from August 1957 till February 1st, 1979.
Wow. Sir, and where did you serve? Give us some of the names of the...
Well, my first duty station was Montauk Point, Long Island, New York. From there, I went to Alaska. I came back and served the rest of my first 4 years at Bergstrom Air Force in Bangor, Maine.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Where you drafted or did you enlist?
I volunteered to go into service right after high school. I went in August of '57.
And where were you living at the time?
I was living at home with my family in Windsor, New York.
Why did you join?
I joined because I wanted an education and there weren't sufficient funds to go to college.
And why did you pick the branch of service that you joined?
Because I had friends that had been in the Air Force and they liked it.
Okay, and do you recall your first days in service?
Huh?
Do you recall your first days in service?
Oh, I can recall them. They're so vivid. First of all, we got a bus from Binghamton, New York to Syracuse where we took the physical and the oath of enlistment. Then we flew all night to San Antonio, Texas, to Lackland Air Force Base, and 13 weeks of basic training,
Okay.
which consisted of learning to wear the uniform, learning the military code of justice, learning how to wear the uniform properly, how to salute officers properly, and all the good things you need to know to be a good military person.
Okay, very good. Okay, so tell us a little bit more about that boot camp training.
Well, the boot camp training is made for you to learn to take orders and not fuss about them. Do as you're told. Don't question why. Just do it because everybody else will follow you and it gets done quicker and there's no more headaches.
Okay.
Do you remember, because you're instructors?
Do you remember your instructors?
I can't remember their names, but the instructors were to be looked up at, and you always spoke to them, yes sir, no sir, and you showed them tremendous respect because they were to be respected. They had a job to do, and if you followed their instructions, you got along just beautifully. If you didn't, well, you suffered accordingly.
Okay, and were there any times that you thought throughout that boot camp training that you would not make it?
I think everybody goes through a period in about the third week where you question, did you make the right decision? Because it gets pretty lonesome and pretty hectic, and then you start to fall into a routine and everything makes sense as they start explaining why they're doing certain things a certain way, and it's all for the good. I have nothing but respect now that I look back on the instructors in basic training.
Excellent, that's really, really great. Okay, and then mention again to us which war you served.
Which war?
Yes.
I did one tour in Perak, Thailand, which was considered Vietnam.
Vietnam War, okay. And you said you went to Thailand, was that exactly where you went at that time?
Oh yeah, I went to Perak, Thailand.
Okay. And do you remember arriving and what it was like when you arrived in Thailand? What was that experience like?
Thailand is a nice country. The king and queen of Thailand at that time had been educated in this country at I think at Harvard University, either Harvard or Princeton, and I can't remember for sure which, but it was one of the more prestigious schools. And English was a second language, and most of them were required to speak English, so it was pretty nice.
What was your job?
The first job I had in the service was a power production specialist, which meant I took care of equipment that produced electricity. And I overhauled the diesel engines and knew how to bring them up online, so in case of emergency we would have electrical power. I did that the first 4 years I was in the service. I got out for about 2 months and decided I wanted to come back, but I got a chance when I came back to go to electronics school in Biloxi, Mississippi. And that's when I started getting all the good electronic schools, and I got selected for security service, which meant even more and better schooling.
Okay. Okay, did you ever get a chance to see any combat?
I never really saw any combat. I saw the results of it, but I never saw it.
And you said, when you say you saw the results of, so you saw many casualties in your unit?
Well, not in my unit. Every now and then I'd have to fix some communications equipment on medevac flights.
Okay.
Tell me about your most memorable experiences, because you know, in the military.
Oh, I don't know. I had quite a few memorable experience, but I guess when at Bergstrom Air Force Base and we had a formal retreat and General Cross was there, that was President Lyndon Johnson, personal pilot. And I got to meet him. That was pretty exciting.
Okay, I asked you a little bit earlier, just in conversation, had you ever received any medals or awards or citations?
Oh, I received the Good Conduct Medal and I don't know. The Marksmanship Medal. And
Okay, and for what reason? Now, you said that good conduct, that's very, very important, because
that is awarded every 3 years for just being a good person, not getting any Article 15s or anything bad marks against you.
Okay, and is that what the Article 15 was, bad marks against you?
Yeah, Article 15 was just that was the lowest form of military justice. And then it could go to a court-martial after that.
Okay, let's talk about your family life and your life. Let's talk about how about staying in touch with your family? How did you stay in touch with your family?
Well, the first 4 years I used to write letters home, and I would try to write at least once a week.
Okay.
And then I got married in 1963 to a wonderful, wonderful lady, and she had 3 children, which I adopted one of them.
Okay.
And by that time I had made E4, and I was able to take her to Japan,
That was,
where we lived for quite a few years until she couldn't stand the earthquakes anymore. We went through a bad earthquake in 1968, and I can still see everything out of the kitchen cupboards on the floor. The fish tank was all broken, and everything was just a mess, because a 6.8 earthquake is pretty severe.
pretty severe, yeah. Now, I know lately we've seen some 7 points and all of that, so I
Oh.
can imagine the 6 point, that's pretty close.
And I'll tell you what, this is a real. I was on duty when the earthquake hit, and the building I was working in, everything, you could see the racks of equipment walking across the floor, and then you had to get out because the ceiling was falling in and everything. We got outside, you couldn't stand up, and you looked at the ground off in a distance, and it was just like waves of the ocean. It was actually rising and falling. And then this big hole opened up in the road.
Wow. That was
Lucky
an
no one
experience.
was killed, but it was scary.
Wow, I can imagine, I can imagine.
What was the food like?
Huh? What was
What
the
was the
food
food
like
like?
in the
Yes.
service?
Yes.
I thought the Air Force had tremendously good meals in the dining hall. You really had the best chow in the Air Force of any branch of the service, because I had a chance to eat in Army mess halls and Navy mess halls, and they didn't even begin to compare with an Air Force mess hall. We had a lot of Air Force mess halls that had won several awards for outstanding cooking.
And did you participate in any activities outside of your actual assignment? Did you participate in, like, was there football? Or was
I
there basketball?
participated in softball and basketball.
Okay, okay, and were you good?
Let's put it this way, I was usually one of the better players on the softball team at the base level,
Okay,
and I even played at inter-service level,
okay. Very
and I
good.
played basketball for the base team, so you have to be pretty good.
Okay, and did you feel you had an ample amount of supplies?
Oh, yeah. Recreation was really good in most of the places I was at. Brindisi, Italy, for instance, had a rod and gun club, and I learned to shoot skeet there.
And did you feel any pressure or stress while there in the military?
No.
Was there something special you did for good luck? You know how some people have a rabbit's foot or any of that? Did you have anything
I
like
had
that?
none of that. I had my faith in my Maker, and I prayed and I read the Bible daily, and that's where I got my strength from.
Wow, how special is that? Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
How did people entertain themselves because in the military?
How did they entertain themselves?
Right, outside of sports, was there any other kind
Oh,
of...
there was always, most every place had a base movie theater, and they had, movies. And then there was always, you could go off base, and there was activities.
Was there
But the USO club and the service clubs offered a lot of activities. So you had a lot of varied things. The NCO club, once I made NCO, had a lot of entertainment come in.
Okay, because that was our next question. Do you remember some of the entertainers who came in?
Oh, Diana Ross.
Oh, I like her.
I did too. And she's the biggest star that I can remember. Then there were a lot of other ones, but it's hard to recall everything.
What did you look forward to when you knew it was time for you to have your leave? What did you look forward to? And then after looking forward to, what did you do when you were on leave?
I usually tried to get home every other year in November, and so I could go deer hunting.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And if I couldn't get November, then I'd be home in April to do fishing, because I was able to fish the west branch of the Delaware River, which is one of the best trout streams in New York State.
Okay. Okay. And where did you travel throughout the service, other than you mentioned Taiwan?
I went to Thailand.
Thailand, yes.
Yes. I went to Japan,
Okay.
Brindisi, Italy,
Okay.
and that's some of the overseas places I was at.
Okay. Very good.
Would you recall some funny times there?
Funny time?
Yeah, funny time.
Any humorous, really just
Yeah.
humorous or any unusual events?
No, everything was, a lot of things I can't recall, really. It's been a few years and I had a stroke, and so some of my memory is just not real sharp.
But you are doing extremely well, and we appreciate what you're sharing with us right now.
Oh, I'm so proud of what God gave me back.
Absolutely, absolutely. Do you recall any pranks or did you pull any pranks while you were there? Do you recall any pranks that were pulled on any of your people in your unit, or did you pull any pranks on any of your
No,
people in the unit?
the Air Force wasn't noted for that.
Okay.
I mean, that kind of stuff was frowned upon, and I think everybody went out of their way to see that it didn't happen. Because we were taught that, equal opportunity, you don't do those kind of things.
Okay. Okay.
And we had some really good training, and I think that's why everything was so harmonious in the Air Force.
Okay. Okay.
Would you have any pictures?
No, I don't have much of anything, because when I had to move down here, I had to get rid of most everything, and I didn't have too much. I was not one to collect memorabilia.
Okay. Okay. What did you think of officers or some of your fellow soldiers? Did you?
Oh, I thought the officers in the Air Force were far superior to the officers in the other branch of the service. They treated us as gentlemen, we treated them as gentlemen, and it wasn't this gung-ho attitude, I outrank you, I'm an officer, you're an enlisted man, you just jump when I get the whim to tell you to jump. It wasn't that way in the service. They were just man to man, Most of the officers I knew wouldn't ask you to do anything they wouldn't do themselves.
That's beautiful. That makes a big difference, because you get better responses, don't you?
Right.
think, when you have those kinds of attitudes. So you did not keep a personal diary.
No.
You did not. Okay. Well, let's talk about after service. What exactly do you recall the day your service ended?
The day I what?
The day your service ended.
It was a wonderful day. I knew this disc jockey in Austin, Texas, that had her own show on the radio, and she didn't particularly like the military. And she played this Johnny Paycheck song, Take This Job and Shove It, and says that I dedicate this to the base commander, but I know Sergeant Lake wouldn't say this because he's too much of a gentleman, but I'll say it.
How about that? Oh.
Penny Reeves was the disc jockey's name.
What was the name again?
Penny Reeves.
Penny Reeves. Okay.
Cave-It, 1300 on the AM dial.
Okay. Okay. You remember that. I like that. And so where were you? Did you return back to your hometown, or where did you?
No,
return
I
to?
stayed in Texas for pretty near a year, and then my wife died, and I came back to New York.
Okay. Oh. year did your wife pass?
What? 81, I think it was.
Okay.
Then I lost my second wife in 2002.
Okay. And you mentioned it. What about your children? Were your children there to greet you when you came home? Your wife was here to greet you when you came home?
Yeah, they were there, but it wasn't, they had to come back and go to school. And the reason my wife came back from Japan, she didn't like the earthquakes. Her oldest daughter got all the schooling she could get in Japan. There was no high school, so she had to come back and bring her back. And
Okay. And what about the next days after that? Just the next few days after your service ended and you came home. What were those days like?
they were enjoyable. It took a little getting used to, but I worked with my father, I got out and we made maple syrup.
Oh, for those pancakes that we all like to eat.
Oh yeah. It takes quite a lot of work to make maple syrup. Out of a gallon of the syrup that you collect, you get a cupful of maple syrup. Out of the sap you collect, when you boil it down, it takes a gallon to make a cupful.
Wow, that's interesting. Wow. So you had gotten all of your schooling also, so you didn't go back to school?
Oh yeah, I went back to Broome Community College and took some courses.
Oh, good. And what did you study?
Oh, I studied math and physics
Okay.
and chip manufacturing.
Okay. And did you work in did you work in that field when you
Oh,
completed your studies?
then I worked in that field for a while, and then I got a job working in a chemical manufacturing plant as a safety instructor.
Okay. And did you use the GI Bill for your schooling?
Yeah, some.
Okay.
And then I got this, I worked for Anatech Image, which is a division of International Paper, it was. And I was there 10 years. And I traveled all over. I taught the OSHA mandated courses, fork truck training. And so I traveled to all their plants.
Okay. So did you what was the question I was going to ask you? So that GI Bill, I was going to say that GI Bill actually was a really great benefit then.
Oh yeah, it was a great benefit.
It really was a great benefit.
Did you make any close friendships while you was in
The service?
You ever using service?
Oh yeah, I had some friends. I met some really good people. Gary Harper and I served together for, 8 years or something like that. But the trouble of it is, you change duty assignments and you kind of lose track of them. In fact, one of the ones that I served with, Matsumoto, in Bangor, Maine, I ran across him in Thailand.
Oh, see that.
And I hadn't seen him from I can't figure it all out now, but it was a lot of years.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just about at the end of our careers.
Okay, and did you join any veterans organizations after coming home?
I joined the VFW because they have my plaque and everything there in Windsor, New York.
How long were you in?
22 and a half years.
Okay, let's see. What about in the later years? Let's see about that. What did you go on to do as a career after the war? Again, you said you went to schooling.
I went to school. I got a degree in accounting.
Okay.
I never worked at it a day in my life because as soon as I got my degree in accounting, Universal Instruments hired me as electrical tech, and because I had a degree, they didn't care what it was in, just long as you had that degree.
And did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
I had such a good experience that I don't have anything, it's nothing but all good.
Very good. Excellent. Excellent. And you know what? I very rarely hear people say that. That is really, really great. That is really great to know that somebody feels great about their whole entire experience, no matter what. That's really good. So now the Veterans Organization that you said VFW, do you have any relationship with any VFWs or any?
Not since I moved down
presently?
here. I kind of gave up a lot after I had the stroke.
Okay. What about reunions? Did you have reunions throughout your time at any time where you and the fellas got back together, your fellow
No,
veterans?
no. The only reunion I've been to is my 50th class reunion.
Okay, okay. And did your service and experiences affect your life? How do you, would you say they did? They made a real great impact on your life?
I would say they did. They taught me the value of hard work and to complete every task as quickly and as best you can do it, to the best of your ability. If you give it all you got, then that'll be good enough. But it isn't just good enough to finish it. You got to do it to the best of your ability.
Okay, very good. That's very true. That's very true. So just tell us anything you'd like to tell us in this interview. Just tell us anything that comes to mind that you would like to share in your interview. As a matter of fact, if you were going to share this with family members and friends, what would be some main important pieces that you would want them to know about your experience?
Well, I think my mother had the greatest influence on my service career because she prayed for me daily. And I knew as long as her prayers were there that I didn't have anything to fear if I did what I was supposed to do.
Okay. Were there services where you would be able to go to church, to worship service, or anything like that?
I attended as best I could.
Okay.
I think I could have made a better effort to attend more than I did, but I made it a point to.
And were there other servicemen who had a faith the same as yours, who you
Yeah.
got together, you prayed sometime together, or anything
No,
like that?
but there were others that had as strong a faith as I did, and they might have been different religions. We didn't discuss religion or politics. That was best left alone.
That's good. That's true. That's very true. Okay, and so tell us just one more main point, one really impactful point about your experience, one super impactful point about your experience.
Yeah. I guess some of the great pilots I met in the Air Force, because I was an air crew life support specialist, and in that assignment I was tasked with keeping the pilots' flight records, and I had to make sure that when they were on the board to fly, that their flight records were up to date. There wasn't any training that they needed to get before they went up, which was a real responsible position. And then if there was and I could train them, I did it. Lots of times I would make a special effort to get their training in just before they flew, even if I had to come in early or stay late.
Okay. And then what would be a word that you would give if someone was considering going to the military? What would be a word of encouragement or advice that you would give to someone?
Just do the best you can do. Don't ask too many questions, and they'll take care of you. That's the way they want it. That's the way it's always been. And as long as you can follow orders and do it correctly, there's no problem. You'll succeed.
And the one thing I didn't ask you, I don't think I asked you, was what was your age when you went into the military?
I was 18 years old when I went in, and I had my time in the day I turned 40.
Okay. Wow.
which was actually the 31st of January, but your retirement day is 1 day later.
Okay, okay. Well, Mr. Lake, again, my name is Letitia Ruffin-Cartwright. My assistant and the camera person is Ottilie Price. We are so grateful to you for the service that you rendered for us in this country. And we just thank you very much, sir, and thank you very much for this interview. Hopefully someone will gain some greatness from your experience in the military that will carry them throughout their experience in the military.
Yeah. One of the greatest military men that I remember the most is Sergeant Wilson, Master Sergeant. He was the first sergeant of the task outfit I belonged to, and he died at his desk, but he was a great man to look up to.
Very good, sir. Very good. It's always a good thing to have a mentor. Wherever you go, it's always a good thing to have a mentor. So thank you very, very much. And if you'll stay right there just for 1 second,